Okay, let's talk about a real garden head scratcher. Have you ever come across a plant that's just, well, stunningly beautiful, totally unique looking,
Hmm.
but it generates this almost frantic demand? Like people will shell out serious cash, we're talking maybe the price of a small appliance for basically a stick.
Right, a non-flowering stick.
Exactly. Knowing full well they're signing up for potentially a whole lot of tricky maintenance, what kind of flower has that kind of pull?
Well, that's pretty much the question that got us started on this deep dive today. We've been looking through the sources you sent over, really focusing on this one species, Abutilon megapotamicum.
Right.
And our mission basically is to figure out why this plant, with its really, really captivating flowers, is so incredibly popular. What's the emotional hook? And then weigh that against the practical challenges of actually growing it, especially outside its home turf in Brazil.
It really does sound like we're looking at a plant that's all about the looks, maybe not so much about the easy gardening experience.
That sums it up pretty well.
So if you're out there trying to find this thing, the sources mentioned, it goes by a few names, right?
Yeah, we saw four main ones. There's trailing abutilon, Brazilian bellflower,
Okay.
Chinese lantern, or sometimes flowering maple.
And those last two, especially Chinese lantern, that immediately gives you a pretty big clue about why people want it so badly, doesn't it? It points right to its main feature.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with just how visually striking it is.
Yeah, the appeal really seems almost totally driven by the bloom itself. What really stood out in the material was the focus on the shape.
Mhm.
These flowers are described as delicate, pendulous, meaning they hang downwards and they're bell-shaped, like tiny, elegant ornaments, basically.
So not your standard flower shape at all.
No, definitely not. It's structured in a way that genuinely looks like those little paper lanterns you see at festivals.
And that shape, it's not just pretty, is it? It actually ties into its cultural significance, particularly in some places.
Exactly. The notes we looked at suggested that this specific lantern-like look makes the plant really sought after around the time of the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year.
Okay.
So that kind of elevates the Abutilon from just being a nice plant in the garden. It becomes part of a seasonal symbolic thing. You're not just buying pretty, you're buying something that ties into tradition.
Right, and that layer adds a whole different kind of value, makes it timely, relevant.
Definitely boosts the perceived value, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Scarcity, timing, cultural relevance, it all adds up. But let's zoom in on the colors because the sources were quite specific. It's the contrast that really sells that lantern idea.
Yeah, the visual complexity is definitely key. We saw notes saying the petals, which form the inner bell part, are usually this bright, sunny yellow.
Okay.
But what makes it really pop visually is the contrast with the calyx, that sort of base part the flower sits in.
Yeah, the outer bit.
That's typically a deep, really dramatic red. So the yellow seems to emerge right out of this red base. It creates this intense visual separation, makes the whole thing look, well, more architectural and definitely much more like a tiny hanging lantern.
Wow. So you've got this incredible look. It's culturally significant. Now, if you're a gardener thinking about the cost and the effort, which we know is coming,
Mm-hmm.
you need some payoff, right?
Yeah.
Is this just a flash in the pan bloom?
That seems to be the saving grace for the collectors. Fortunately, the Abutilon apparently delivers when it comes to flowering time.
Oh, good.
The sources indicated it blooms profusely, and it keeps going for many months. So it's not one of those plants you be baby all year for just 2 weeks of glory.
Okay, that's crucial.
You get that amazing red and yellow show for a good chunk of the growing season, which, probably helps people feel better about the initial price tag.
That long flowering season is the reward then.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's pivot. Let's talk about the cost of that reward, because this is where the beautiful dream meets, well, reality. The flowers are clearly amazing, but what did the gardener and the source material actually say about the rest of the plant? The non-flowering bits. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the sources were pretty upfront about it, actually. The writer loved the flowers, no question, but
Yeah.
was, let's say, less enthusiastic, which felt like a polite code for kind of disappointed about the leaves and the plant's general shape. Apparently, it naturally grows quite bushy, and the key thing is it doesn't really have the strength, the internal structure, to hold itself up properly.
That was not a neat little shrub.
Not at all. It's described as sprawling, sort of demanding. It basically needs a trellis or some other kind of pretty serious support if you don't want it just flopping over. So the source is basically saying, amazing flowers, but the plant itself is kind of high maintenance structurally. You pay for the bloom, but you've got to constantly manage the green bits. Pretty much.
I can just picture the gardener kind of wrestling with this green blob, thinking, okay, this cost me a fortune and it's a pain, but oh, those little lanterns.
That tension seems to define the whole experience of growing it, and that leads right into something specific mentioned in the sources. This desire people have to train it into a more formal shape.
Ah, yes, the standard tree shapes.
Exactly. You know, that classic lollipop look. A lot of collectors want their prize plants to look neat and tidy, structured.
Is that even realistic for a plant that naturally wants to trail and sprawl? Well, based on reviewing its natural habits and looking at images, the conclusion in the source was pretty blunt. Trying to force it into that shape is probably not doable.
Right. Not what you want to hear.
Its stems are naturally quite flexible. Its whole growth pattern is designed for, like, scrambling or hanging over things. Think climbing, not standing tall on its own.
So forcing it would be a constant battle.
Yeah, constant intensive pruning, probably needing some serious staking and support. You'd be fighting its basic nature the whole time. That's a big turnoff for most home gardeners. Sounds like a total botanical diva.
Yeah.
Gives you the glamour, but only if you build the stage for it, right?
Huh. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And yet, despite all this, the market apparently doesn't care. This difficulty, this neediness doesn't seem to stop people wanting it. That must drive the price way up.
Oh, absolutely. The high price is a really clear signal that demand is just way higher than supply. Collectors seem willing to overlook all the practical issues just for a chance to have those unique flowers.
Did the sources give any specifics on price? They did. There was hard market data mentioned, a specific price of MYR 68. Okay, MYR 68. Let's give that some context. That's Malaysian ringgit. It might not sound like a huge amount internationally, maybe, what, 15 US dollars or so? But for a tiny shrub.
Exactly. And crucially, a tiny shrub without any flowers on it at the time of purchase.
Wow. So it's a premium price for potential. You could get, I don't know, a decent meal out, maybe a couple of books for that. Instead, you're gambling on a little green stick eventually delivering those lanterns.
It really highlights how prized it is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that cost tells us the value almost entirely wrapped up in the potential bloom and how rare the plant is.
Not in how easy it is to grow or how nice the leaves look right now.
Definitely not. It's like you're paying up front, hoping for those red and yellow flowers down the line. And the source even mentioned how hard it was to find a smaller, cheaper sample. So just getting hold of one is a challenge in itself.
It's just fascinating how desire can completely reshape value, isn't it? The gardener is making this conscious choice, basically saying, okay, I know I have to spend this money, and I know I'll spend hours managing its shape, but those few months of amazing, culturally meaningful flowers, yeah, that's worth the ongoing structural headache.
It really taps into a specific kind of collector mindset, I think. The difficulty, the cost, the rarity, all those things actually seem to add to its status.
You mean if it were easy and cheap, people might not want it as much?
Possibly. Even if the flower looked exactly the same. Sometimes the challenge itself becomes part of the allure, part of the story you tell about the plant.
Which brings us right back to the fundamental tension with this plant, the core conflict we've been exploring. You've got the incredible, just magnetic pull of that unique two-tone lantern flower versus the undeniable reality of its bushy, needs support growth habit, plus a really quite steep price tag, even for a starter plant.
Yeah, and this raises a really interesting question maybe for you listening to think about, especially if you're into collecting sought-after plants like this Brazilian bellflower. How much does sheer undeniable beauty in a flower, that perfect, unique red and yellow combination, how much does that actually outweigh the practical stuff?
Like the messy foliage, the difficulty in training it, the cost.
Exactly, the cost of getting even a non-flowering piece. What is it about certain plants that makes their perceived value soar, even when their basic form requires so much active, continuous management just to look, well, presentable?
So what does this all mean in the end? I guess it means that sometimes when beauty is truly unique, truly singular, it can win out over practicality and price.
Seems like it.
The Abutilon megapotamicum, this Chinese lantern plant, it really forces us to think about that gardening equation, doesn't it? Where sometimes maybe the plants that give us the biggest reward are the ones that ask the most from us, our time, our effort, and even our engineering skills with trellises.
It's a real testament to the power of just a perfect flower design.
Absolutely. Worth wrestling with a bushy plant for, apparently.